first game of the round, we've got the Crusaders and the Blues down in Christchurch. And look, it's a rematch of last year's Super Rugby Pacific Grand Final, which was in Eden Park last year, where the Crusaders won 21-7. But Harry, do you want to take us through new injuries to report, any players returning, and also, I guess, just the last matchup this year of the Crusaders and the Blues?
Yep. Yeah. So a few injury concerns for the Crusaders, on new injury concerns on top of their long list. They've got now 11 players out through injury, but the new ones were Ethan Blackadder is a maybe to play with a hip injury. I can only assume that's a hip pointer, but no actual clarity there. Zach Gallagher, the reserve lock, will be out with a calf injury, and Sam Whitelock expected not to play again with a very grumpy Achilles tendon problem, which, we've seen that limit a lot of game time from some of the Force players, and no doubt his eyes will be firmly on the World Cup this year. So I think that he's all but ruled out as well. And, we mentioned Richie Moe as well, to come off the field with severe cramp. I'd say he'll be fine. That shouldn't keep anyone out.
In the return, pickle juice, and he'll be right.
Yeah, exactly. In the returning columns, you've got Caleb Clark coming back, expected to be coming back from a quad injury as well. They said he trained well on Monday, no problems. They hadn't completely ruled him in, but it looks like he's highly likely to play, which is a big in for them. And moving on to the last matchups. Well, there's a lot of history between these two sides, but it's not quite as close as what I thought it was going to be. The last matchup, they've played twice this year already. It's 15-3 in Christchurch only a few weeks ago, and 34-28 to the Crusaders as well at Eden Park this year as well. So they've had their number this year. You mentioned the rematch of last year, but Craig, take us through the Crusaders' ridiculous final stats that the boys are going to have to overcome.
The Crusaders final. Oh, yes, right, of course. Well, they are. There's lots of crazy final stats that they kept saying in every game last week about how it's impossible for any Aussie teams to beat Kiwi teams in the finals on New Zealand soil. But there's none crazier than these stats with the Crusaders. They are 28-0 in finals games over the 28-year history of the competition. They have won 17 of their last 18 matches between them, and 30 of 42 ever between the Blues and the Crusaders. Oh, how are they 28-0 in finals games over the 28-year history of the competition? How is that possible?
At home.
At home. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure we were there when the Tars beat them in the grand finals, mate. But 28-0 at home in Christchurch. Yeah,
lost the finals match at home, and the Blues have got a decent chance at it this week, but we'll get into why. There's a lot of injuries. We mentioned, just some of the players that were newly out, but they're without Bauer, Newell, and Moody in the front row. Sam Whitelock, Mitch Dunche, and Zach Gallagher in the second row. Ethan Blackadder, Cullen Grace in the back row. So just huge stocks out for them through their forward pack. And David Avili and Sevu Reece both missing, as such important players from them, to be honest, in their back line as well. It's a lot to cover for any side.
I was thinking earlier when you mentioned Caleb Clark coming back and how that's a big in. I was thinking about how Mark Talay has just been so good that we've barely said Caleb Clark's name all year this year, and just how epic he is. Now also Sevu Reece. How a couple of years ago, he was the player's top fantasy player for about 2 or 3 years in a row. Just how massive he is to a team. God, it's been huge this year in terms of new players. All these players, I don't know. We'll see what they can do this week. But
it's hard. I think Caleb Clark's a bit patchy. He's done some amazing things. But Sevu Reece obviously been out for the bulk of the year. I think he did his ACL, didn't he?
He did.
He in form, I think he's one of the key pieces the Crusaders are missing right now. We'll get on to the wing battle in a moment, but I think he would make a huge in his ability not only to score points from nothing, his short kicking game, and his ability to just level anyone no matter their size. Like, I'd love to mark him up against Mark Talaya and see that battle. So it's a real shame that we won't see those two going at it.
Can you imagine as well now just how much Leicester Fainga'anuku has developed, and we see him popping up all over the field? That was a very Sevu Reece-esque trait, that he just pop up all over the field. Can you imagine the Crusaders having these two wingers that are just attacking you from anywhere and everywhere all the time? Like, we haven't get to see that yet, but that'd be epic for next year maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much strike power when they have a full strength side. But look, the question for me, or the first question for me for the Crusaders is just, is the dominant showing over the Fijian Ndrua for the Crusaders a false indicator of form, given that the Ndrua were clearly just emotionally spent and they didn't really get up for it? They did it so convincingly, the Crusaders, despite so many changes across their pack. I was a bit worried that they wouldn't really gel together, and they absolutely did. Now, I don't know if that is a reflection of how good the Crusaders are with their second string side, but there was huge question marks through the first half of their season when they did have a lot of injuries that they couldn't really compete with the top sides. And then they get to the quarterfinals and they just absolutely pace the Ndrua despite all those injuries. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think, first of all, I mean, you can look at the stats and just say finals Crusaders are another beast altogether. Like, they just go up a gear. But for mine, I think you can take a bit from the dominant showing over the Drua. And for me, the thing that's really stuck out was just like they went back to essential Crusaders dominant set piece. And I feel like they really have, in the last couple of weeks, you've kind of seen them fall back to just dominate set piece, get penalties, kick for touch, rolling maul tries. And so the best example out of this game for me was the Fijian, the Drua's scrum had actually been becoming a bit of a weapon in the last couple of weeks, particularly since they brought on Masaki Doge, or Donge, I'm probably going to say that wrong.
Yeah.
Because he was absolutely a menace in the scrum and destroying every prop he was coming up against. And then the Crusaders, a really big in for them this week was Ollie Jaeger coming back. So that allowed Tamati Williams Tamati's been switching a little bit, but at loose head, Cody and Jaeger. And Tamati absolutely dismantled Donge. I think Donge got about 3 penalties against him in the scrum early on. So they just went back to what works. Cody Taylor scoring 2 tries. It was just pressure at set piece, kick for touch, rolling maul, and just that kind of clinical Crusaders set piece, and then just applying pressure. It's just like turning the screws. So I don't think it actually matters who they're playing. Like, now they're going to play the Blues, a more classier side, and the Blues have a great forward pack. But I just don't think that's going to matter. Like, I think they have a fantastic front row, Offer and Nepo Laulala, but that's one hell of a front row for the Crusaders. The Tamati Williams has come so far, I think. He's a player that's excited me for years, just purely based on how massive the bloke is. But he put on a clinic in the scrum the last couple of weeks. And the guy's playing, I don't know how he's playing such big minutes and still getting into everything, mate. He's 145 kilos or something. He's a hell of an athlete, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, look, I had that front row battle earmarked as one of the all-important matches, and you touched on it perfectly. Tamati Williams' dominance of Masaki Donge, it was completely unexpected, to be honest, shifting to the loose head side and then just completely picking him apart. I didn't see it coming. At the same time, I think Ofa Tu'ungafase and Nepo Laulala were fantastic for the Blues as well against the Reds. Against the Waratahs. It's going to be a matchup that should decide a couple of All Blacks jerseys. In particular, I think Nepo, you've got to lock him in. He's all class. But Tamati Williams, after dominating Donge, if he can do something similar against the Blues this week, I genuinely believe you need to start to consider him as the All Blacks starting prop. I don't know which side, but he's one of them. And they've got a lot of good props coming through at the moment.
Well, no, you've nailed it here. I mean, we're talking scrumming and propping, so you've got me all excited now. But you've nailed it here. Nepo Laulala is the best scrummaging prop in New Zealand, and he's their tight head. So if you want the ultimate test for the young Tamati Williams, he's now coming up. If he's starting at loose head again this week, which he will be, he's coming up against Nepo. So consider this your 2023 Rugby World Cup All Blacks audition. Because, look, he's been in and around that All Black squad, but Fletcher Newell for the Crusaders, the other prop who's been out injured, has kind of been preferred above him, but just because he's been perhaps a little bit of a better scrummager than Tamati has been. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we can say that this game, given there's so much talent in the backlines and whatever, but this game between the Crusaders and Blues is going to come down to the set piece. And a large part is going to be getting those scrum penalties to kick for touch and get territory.
No, I won't have that at all.
You won't have it.
I'm going to highlight my boy Richie Mo'unga, who won't be my boy, I'm sure, this week. But He just goes to another level in finals. I think he was actually a little bit quiet through the back half of the season as the Crusaders started getting their other players back. And you can always tell attacking involvements through fantasy footy. And I know that doesn't translate purely to how you control the game, how well he pins the corners and those kind of things that he does do very, very well. But his stats just go through the roof through finals. I think he had like a 25 average for the last 3 games. And then on the weekend scored 70 odd points. Like he really does just start taking the ball under his own wing. He starts running a hell of a lot more. He busts so many tackles, which creates so much of an opportunity for the likes of Lester Fainga'a-Anuku. I think Jack Goodhue benefits as well. It really does create a whole nother element to the attack that the defense just hasn't really had to deal with through the main part of the season.
Yeah, and I think a large part of that I've noticed, I noticed last week, is that he it's kind of like what Artie does as well, but he lips so much in the last 20 to 30 minutes. In that second half, he just the speed of the game. He accelerates so much into everything and just catches people napping. So obviously he plays well in the first half, but that second half finals Richie Mo'unga, it's a new beast. It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The wing battle. Now, you wanted to talk about the wing battle. You've got some stats. You love stats. Give us the stats.
I do love stats, and this unfolded as I was thinking about it. Because first of all, I went back to a point that I've been making for a few weeks, which is I love Dallas McLeod. I think he's an exceptional young player, but I really don't believe he's a winger in any way, shape, or form. I think he's been very ineffective as a winger. Yes, he can finish because he's strong in a little bit of contact, but I don't think he's got the gas. I don't think he quite has his positioning down pat. But he's a phenomenal defender. He's at 82% in defence, which is right up there with the highest going around in Super Rugby. He's going to be marking up against Caleb Clark, who similarly has an 80% defence stat. So I think if he can take the space away from Caleb Clark, because Clark, he's got wheels on him all day long, then he should be able to keep him quiet. But given open space, I think McLeod's going to have some work to do. And then, as I was looking into this just illuminated my next point about the wing battle, which is Mark Talea, who by far the most damaging player in Super Rugby this year. He tackles at 83%, so phenomenal on both sides of the ball, but he's against Lester Fainga'a-Anuku, who is only tackling at 69% for the year. Significantly lower. And if you're missing 3 of 10 tackles, you're guaranteed to miss more than 3 against Mark Talea this week.
Look, that's true. I think I reckon that's just because Lester Fainga'a-Anuku, probably half of his tackles are forwards. He's in there in the bloody forward pack half the time.
Mate, not in D, he's not.
I don't know, mate. He's everywhere. But
not just defending the big Iona wingers because you love them all so much.
I love Fainga'a-Anuku, mate.
So do I. But Mark Talea, in the form he's in, that's a big question mark for me. How do you make sure you limit the damage of Mark Talea? I don't really know, but it's probably not by sending Leicester up. Yeah, no one does, really. But it's probably not by sending Leicester up against him. You got Will Jordan coming back from his his inner ear issue and balance issues that have kept him out for a good best part of a year. Dallas McLeod not quite with the wheels, and then you've got Lester Fainga'a-Anuku, who is going to have the almighty challenge. The one thing I would say is Jack Goodhue and Braden Ennor are excellent defensive centres as well. So maybe you have to shift them around, and maybe you put Ennor out there against him, I think, as another option. But either way, I like that matchup for Talea.
For sure. And, I mean, we're going to be spoiled. That's a mouth-watering matchup. Talea, Fainga'a-Anuku. Probably, I mean, I would say on the balance of the seasons, you're starting all black wingers. Caleb Clark's going to have a hell of a game if he wants to try and take back any territory in that battle. But, I think you just touching on, we should move on to the Blues, but just you touching on the Crusaders, the good defensive centres, that'll be pivotal as well. I think it's a good shout having a good defensive 13 and having to, tie down Rieko Ioane. I think that will be really good. Rico's really excelled the last few games. So, now speaking of Rieko.
The question on that is going to be, for me, both Braden Ennor and Jack Goodhue look like they've lost a yard of pace since coming back from their respective knee injuries. So Rieko obviously so quick with the ball in hand as well. I think that's where we're going to really put the litmus test in for those centres. They need to have pace to keep up with the best players in Super Rugby and, arguably some of the best players in the world.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, we'll move on to the Blues. Speaking of Rieko, it's his 100th game. How good? I mean, already. How old is he now? Is he 25?
16.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I mean, I think I told you, I can't remember if I brought it up on the pod, but as I look up his age, 26, yeah, that had seen randomly on social media some picture of, I think it was 2015, an All Black Sevens team, which had both Akira, Rico, Sonny Bill Williams, Ben Lamb, I forget who else, just like probably like the dream team of rugby sevens. And it made me think how long Rico's been around for already. And he's only 26, 100 games at 26.
Yeah, crazy. As an outside back, winger, outside center, and outside back, insane. Sadly, he's only got one more year in the All Blacks because they cut a run at 27. But
that's true.
Maybe not an outside center though. Maybe not an outside center.
That's true. And it's also Hoskins Tutu 50th game, so big from him. So they'll both be looking for the win. Now, we talked about the scrum battle already. I think that'll be massive. You wanted to talk about lineouts.
Yeah, well, I think, the question we asked last week was Patrick Tuipulotu fracturing his arm out for the season. He was a big loss, or we think he's a big loss for the Blues. And we were wondering how they were going to go at the lineout against the Waratahs, who actually have a lot of jumpers, albeit all kind of hybrid back rowers and jumpers, but they do have a lot of them. The answer is very, very well. They won 88% of their lineouts, 15 of the 17. And I just wonder if it's going to be do you think it's a harder task against Dog Scott Barrett and Quinton Strange? I think no doubt it would have been a lot harder with Sam Whitelock there, but not been in. What do you think?
I do. It's set piece Crusaders. It's going to be tougher against the Crusaders for sure.
Yeah. So I guess this is going to be where we find out how well they can really handle the set piece without Patrick Tuipulotu, which is one question mark for me. The other one I had down was just the Bryce Heem factor. Now, last year, Bryce Heem was this just breakout older player coming back into the Blues that played anywhere across the back line and tore it up in every single position. This year, we seemingly hadn't seen him until probably the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. He started his second game at inside centre last week. He'd also started 2 in the kind of rested sides, really, at outside centre when Rico needed a rest. And now, all of a sudden, he's jumped ahead as the first choice inside centre and seems to be absolutely dominant in both sides of the ball, attack and defence. I think he adds a huge layer to their game. I think he's a key player for them, and his ability to not only run but then helps feed the ball to the outside backs. He's just an awesome player that to me, it changes the entire challenge of defending the back line of the Blues, having him there instead of Plummer.
Yeah, Mr. Fix-It. I mean, look, he's been the Blues' best 12. I think that's pretty. He hasn't even played that much footy, but he's been the Blues' best 12. Obviously, I really did enjoy RTS, and I think RTS brings something different. But Bryce Heem has been fantastic. He trucks it on, and he kind of can get you on a lot of elements, and even at 34, he's still got a lot of pace on him. So yeah, very, very good. All right, so tips for this one. I'm going to let you have the honour of going first on how you see this match going. You just
Firstly, I have absolutely no idea. I think the thing that's the hardest about this is coming into finals, I thought the Crusaders had hit their straps and it was going to be an easy decision. Then they had a whole host of injuries, and now it makes it a hell of a lot harder. Take out Sam Whitelock and Ethan Blackadder in particular from that Crusaders pack when they're already a little bit depleted or quite depleted, and it does change the complexion of the game. And then the Blues, I thought they were in pretty average form for their lofty standards coming into finals, and I thought they were excellent against the Tars. One of the most dominant performances from them for the entire competition. So it's really leveled it up for me. I know the Crusaders will be favourites, and I'm going to give it to them purely based off those outrageous stats. Like, can they really go 28-1 to finish Razor Robinson's 6-year winning streak like that? Like, surely not. Surely the only time they're allowed to lose is against the Chiefs next week if the Chiefs get through. So yeah, I'm going to go Crusaders, but it's going to be by a last-minute conversion or penalty or something like that. So I'll go by 2.
Oof. Well, look, I agree with you. Crusaders are winning this game. It's in Christchurch. It's happening. And I'm going to say by a little bit more than 2. I'm going to go by 7. So there you go.
Wow. You got no faith in the Blues, mate. Your background there, the boys.
Yeah, look, I love my Ioannis. It's just the Crusaders are just too clinical. And I feel like a couple of weeks ago, I might have thought differently, but just in the last few weeks, I think it actually started, I don't know, this is probably quite a few weeks ago, but the game against the Force at home in Christchurch, where they tore them apart, but just with absolutely executing set piece. It's since then, they've been a whole new team, and they've just been going back to what has worked for them. And I can't see them losing. So, yep, by 7.
Yeah, nice one.